Gaming NBS episode 342 being recorded Monday, May 17th, 2021. Welcome to Gaming NBS, the tabletop RPG podcast. I'm Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show, folks. Welcome back. Glad everybody's around. Sean, how the hell are you? Whoa, spin the mic around. How the hell are you, man?
I'm all right, Brett. How are you?
Not bad. Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Get any gaming in since we talked last?
I have gamed. We gamed.
Oh, we did.
We did game.
Little Blades in the Dark, apart from that. I was thinking, we're talking about that separately, but what else did you do? Anything?
Ran Star Wars on Saturday. Ran Forbidden Lands last Tuesday because of our Blades in the Dark game.
Yep.
They've come across that spire and they started going in.
And they're investigating. Very good.
They are. They think treasure lies within.
Very nice.
Something
it
going
probably
on.
does.
Some interplanar stuff's going on. They suspect.
It's just treasure. It's fine. It's fine, kids.
They go
you guys
inside.
Get in there, it'll be fine.
They go inside and then go to the top, and the top kind of looks out, but there's a door in the side of the tower that goes into. But if it were to open the door, it would just go out into the open, but it doesn't.
Okay.
So they're
nice.
Yeah, plot thickens. We'll see.
I got some, let's see here. AJ ran his 5e Midgard game for Lana and I. That was a lot of fun. We went out and collected some. We're trying to get a bunch of money because we want to buy like an inn or something in this little village that we've been helping. We're like, oh, this could be a cool place to like retire to. So Lana and I have got plans. And we sold some Paraton eggs to an alchemist. And he's got a laundry list of different critter bits he wants. So like, sounds good to me. What do you need? Owlbear beak? Okay, let's go figure that out. So we were doing that for a little bit. We'll see what happens from there. And then, of course, we had Blades in the Dark on Thursday. So that worked out pretty well.
We did. And yeah, it went well. My Star Wars game?
Kind of meh?
Meh. We'll see. We started later than we usually do, and then we ended around kind of the same time. They're off the planet. They were taken prisoner, but the Imperials found them.
That's right.
Started overtaking the base, and then they got off in time. Like, hey, we're out of here. So they left, and they have a couple people with them. And that was it. So then I said, hey, do we want to set up our next date? Like, do we have time, or does everybody take off or whatever? And everybody's like, yeah, we got to take off. So I'm like, okay, sounds good. So we'll see.
No new date set.
No new date set yet. So we shall see.
So that was, to go back to Blades in the Dark, that was the first time since you and I played at the game hole ages ago that you and I have been players at the same table.
That's right.
And I never had the pleasure of playing with Frank House before, so that was kind of fun too. And Craig Shipman did a really, really good job.
He did a top-notch job, Craig did, for sure. Yeah.
And neither you or I had played Blades in the Dark before, we understood concepts and stuff, but I thought from a player's perspective, the other thing I really appreciated, and I said it to Frank House after, I don't know if we caught that on that recording, but he did a really good job of kind of chumming, because he knows the environment. He knows he runs it. It's one of his favorite games. And he kind of just chummed for Sean and I, where it's like, hey, here's an idea. Here's some stuff. And he did it in an in-character way. It was really organic, but you could tell he was doing this to kind of get everybody involved and doing and using the system and stuff. So he did a really good job there. And the plot was fun, weird, mysterious, craziness. But yeah, it was fun. I did the thing I like to do when I'm learning a new system is I'm like, I'll play a fighter, play the cutter, somebody who's pretty simple, figure it out. I think if I were to play again, I'd want to play a more complicated character, something different than a fighter. Try, it's just a different type. I think it could be fun. What'd you think? Did you have a good time?
I did have a good time. Yeah, it was enjoyable. I I'm signed up for Kevin Keneally's Scum and Villainy. He's got like 3 Blades in the Dark based games on the gaming roster, and I'm on Scum and Villainy. So I'd like to see kind of get more exposure to it a little bit. It's a unique system. Yeah.
I think it needs campaign play, and by that I mean to really to get the clocks really cooking, and to see what stress does, and get into the rest of the bits and pieces. We talked about it, but I'm like, oh yeah, I could see where that would be cool. But to experience it, you got to have 2, 3, 4 sessions before all the bits and pieces come into play. So it was fun. Glad we did it. That was a good time. And I don't hate John Harper quite as bad.
Well, that's good. If anything came out of it.
Exactly. My rage is now just a normal, but it's a low boil.
It seems as though that might be a closing of some kind, right? Like
yes,
a bad relationship,
Yes. I have closure. Yes. Closure answers.
Right.
Yes.
That's great. That's good.
That was good. That's good. I figured, just growing, changing a little bit as a person. There we go.
Fantastic.
All right. Before we get any more of that crap, let's go on to a random encounter. But anyway, one more time, thank you again to Craig Shipman for running for us at Third Floor Wars, and for Mr. Frankhouse for joining us. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was fun. Random encounter. 2 to 4 miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery we want to bring to you. First one, Harrigan comments on Simbarum. Dug the Simbarum episode, Sean and Brett, and I'm glad Brett shares some of the opinions I voiced about the game all those months ago when he first was poking at it. From the incredibly evocative art, it's what grabbed me first as well, to the dark, very moody and very focused setting, I hold the game in pretty high esteem. One thing to emphasize, if it wasn't clear in the episode, is that the characters can come from all walks of life, not just from the recently arrived Ambrians, who are the group that comes over the mountains.
Correct.
Who have come to the area after winning a war with dark forces that cost them their homeland. The players could all be members of the decimated barbarian tribe that the Ambrians displaced, or one of the various tribes that are now adjusting to the new status quo and the continued expansion of the militant and battle-hardened Ambrians. There are religious dissenters within the Ambrians' ranks. There are independent communities who have thrown off the yoke of the queen. There are royal relatives with axes to grind. There are refugees from the terrible war years ago who are still arriving and who are being shunted into the Davakar, the Dark Forest, because all the good land is already gone. There are multiple factions within the Ambrian nation. Frankly, there are juicy campaign and story hooks on virtually every page. I think everyone who enjoys dark, gritty, grounded, and mysterious fantasy would dig the game, whether they play the original or the forthcoming 5e version. Hoping you guys both run this at some point.
Thank you, Harrigan, for calling those pieces out. I think that's important. I went long anyway talking about it, and had Harrigan been in the discussion at the bar while we were having this at the con, right? He'd been, oh yeah, don't forget, which is exactly how I took this, which is awesome. But yeah, there's enough bits and pieces to that. How do I do this? If you grab onto some of it, like, ooh, these refugees, or how about these factions, or how about this, how about that, you could ignore or use or have ignored for a while, then bring into play and so on. There's lots of different fun pieces there, and it feels very, to me anyway, as I read it, kind of plug and play. Ooh, I like this thing. I'm going to implement this faction. I want to tell, we want to use something more about their religion. Let's get into that a little bit. Or you could walk around that. It doesn't have to be the forefront type of thing. So I think it's kind of a masterclass, in my opinion, of how to incorporate the lore. I think it's done really, really well. Sean, you actually picked it up too, didn't you?
I did, and I thought it was sitting right here on my desk, but I must have put it in the office.
Put it back in the reading room?
In the reading room, yeah. So yes, I've started delving in, and it seems, the one thing I like about the setting is, and kind of what Harrigan alludes to a little bit, is that there is a bit of history, but it's not too crazy. Like, I'm reading Impossible Landscapes, and Delta Green, man, they love timelines.
Well, Delta Green also has a ton of history, and and to understand what happened when and so forth. Do you need all that? No. you do not. However, the Handler's Book is one big everything that's in every other Delta Green book I own crammed in there. Right. I have the first Delta Green book, then I have the next one, and another hardcover, and so it's like, okay, we'll put that in there, plus, how this changes. So yeah, talk about their cosmology and how it all fits. That's they love their timelines.
So they do that.
This one,
but
this one does a really nice tight.
Yeah, it's tight. It takes some bigger chunks, I think. Like Delta Green Impossible Landscapes is the King in the Yellow campaign. So it goes back to 1700s or something crazy. Like,
when the play was first written.
Right. And it's like, then this person was born. Like in New York, and you're like, okay, great.
It feels quasi-biblical. Its description.
Holy shit.
The cool thing that Symbaroum does, which it reminds me a little bit of the Forbidden Land stuff that you've talked to me about, is it says, okay, there was a massive war. That's over. This is now. That historical component is the thing people talk about and so forth, but there's enough detail, enough shrouded mystery that you can pick stuff from it for pieces and parts. It's not that it doesn't matter, because it informs the militaristic idea. It informs the whole concept of coming into somebody else's place, taking land, sorting things out, fighting with the locals. It informs all that stuff, but it doesn't go back 16 generations or fully detail all bits and pieces. Maybe in some of the other Symbaroum books I have that I haven't gotten to yet have some of that in it, but you read through the core book, like, oh, cool, I feel informed. Very good. And everything else is right now. So short-term stuff.
Taking that and comparing it to something like Eberron, another thing too. So I appreciate Eberron for all the crazy, and they're not really crazy, but all the different organizations.
Yes.
This one, I can get my head wrapped around. Okay, who's this? Got it. Queen, right? Her land. Got it.
Yeah.
Barbarians. Got it. Different clans. No problem. And I don't need to know any of the names necessarily at this point. And then you've got the Fey folk and the dwarves, and they're out there. Okay, got it. Yep. Right. So it's not overly convoluted to the point where, like, what I gotta keep track of this shit. Is there like a family tree somewhere I gotta look at?
And as Harrigan says, though, there's enough hints, clues, and allegations and other things left, in the shadows that you could say, oh, this is cool.
Right.
It talks about, hey, a noble family, blah, 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 which is, again, one of the reasons I think a good way for me to start a game here, whether it turns into a long-term campaign or not, is to run a published adventure in the back of the book type of thing, or a different one that I have of theirs, and say, okay, cool, let's see how this works. And then I have enough fun bits in here that whatever my crew gets into, I'm like, cool, I have enough here I can grow from.
Right.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need a big fat book on Prios, the sun god, or whatever it is. I can make up some stuff and make it work. So pretty cool. Anyway, thanks, Harrigan. That was good. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Harrigan.
Let's see what else we got here. Mr. Salzwedel commented on saying no. This concept is something I've been thinking a lot about more lately, simply because when I first got back in the hobby, I reevaluated my previous game experiences, specifically around game mastering. And I definitely wanted to in the past try to retell epic tales and had a very set design in my head. Since then, I have become much more flexible. In some cases, I haven't cared what the players picked as long as it was something that was in the rule book or created from the existing rules. Excuse me. I've even had a little bit of frustration in some of my games where I felt like the game master was being restricted for reasons that I didn't agree with. But for more I think back on it, they were simply trying to curate a particular type of experience for everyone, including themselves. When discussing this with some of our group, there was a little bit of disagreement, all friendly, of course. But at least some members of our group believe that the game master should be accommodating and allow the players to play whatever they want, as long as there's some rule or mechanic that supports that. Well, I agree we should want to run games that our players want. It also has to be the game that we want as the GM. If you truly want to run a human-centric campaign with no wizard, then being accommodating for the person who wants to be a wizard might not be the right thing. And in fact, your group isn't the right group to run that game. I know I'm rambling a little bit here, but just kind of brain dumping. Recent experience I've had player playing a cleric of a particular deity who is about being crafty and trying to evade death, which was a deity of the night. They mentioned potentially multiclassing in a paladin. It wasn't for role-playing aspect, but for pure mechanical advantage. I did step in as GM and say that doesn't make sense for this particular deity. They don't have churches per se, and I can't see them having paladins running around. In my games and settings, paladins are either holy knights or unholy knights. And even in games where the other side's deities, those ones may or may not have paladins. Where the other sides have deities, those may or may not have paladins, but they could have priests, but definitely not paladins. Okay, enough rambling. Eric, I think that's an interesting piece. I did that for a while in my vampire games back in the day when I would give people make whatever you want. And I feel I'm actually quite good at taking whatever crazy bullshit the players throw at me and then making it into something. And that can be fun, even for a Call of Cthulhu game. Okay, make something. And you're in a city. All you have to do is be tied to this hospital. I did that to Sean with the Trail of Cthulhu game. We had some weird walks of life. But even look, you're just in Chicago. Okay, make a character and I'll figure out the rest of it. That can be fun. It can be a good challenge for the game master, but you have to, as GM, want to do that. And as players want to be involved in that kind of a wonder what the hell's going to happen next type of thing. It's not it's almost overly sandboxy for some folks, perhaps. So open-ended where there's very little structure. But it's, if you want to have a specific type of game, hey, it's human-centric, wizards don't exist, blah, blah, blah. Whereas I was talking about Simba Room last episode, where when I read the advanced players guide, I'm like, I don't want players to be dwarves, elves, or trolls just yet. When I start this, I'll introduce that lore as they kind of unlock it, and as we were to make more characters later on, which is something I thought about after that. I'm like, where did I get that from? Mentioned it to my buddy Lenny. He's like, you used to do that in Vampire all the time. You get a new book, read it, and then suddenly the Assamites showed up. You're like, what the fuck is this? People figured out the clan, and then next go around, yes, you could be one if you want one, type of thing. It was just a fun way to do it. So yeah, I think definitely in those, there's something to be said for bumpers, guidelines, rules, and being firm about them. I think there's something important about that.
Yeah.
It can make sense.
It does.
I had a guy, for example, we played Delta Green, just a real recent example. And one of the guys chose to be it was a very militaristic game, and it started in the desert, Middle East type of thing. And one guy didn't want to do that. He wanted to do something kind of wacky. And I said, all right, fine, we'll see how this works. And it was really clunky. Everyone just kind of GM fiated the fact that his character was there from wasn't even a Homeland Security. It was this weird, Texas lawman type of joined up with it. It made no fucking sense.
It's like when we did play Top Secret. Somebody would be playing Texas Walker,
Texas Ranger,
Walker, Texas Ranger, and then another person would play Steven Seagal, and then Bruce Lee.
And then there's Spetsnaz. What's that for? I don't know. Just because.
Yeah, and then James Bond.
Yeah, it didn't make a lot of sense.
No, it didn't.
No,
didn't have to back then.
Now
we demand shit makes sense.
Everything makes sense at all times.
All the time.
I want perfect continuity at all times. I want no exceptions.
Come on. Let's start making sense, people.
That's good insight, Eric, though. I like the fact, even if all we did through that discussion that Sean and I had was get you to ramble, Eric, that's awesome, because if nothing else, we've said this before, it's pretty high praise, honestly, when anybody writes in and says, hey, you made me think about something. That's pretty cool. So glad we got you to think, man. That's good. Anything else, Sean?
Nope.
Well, then, I think we should move on.
Main topic. What are you talking about this week, Brett?
Well, a while back, I mentioned the fact that, hey, Jared Rasher broke my Avalon cosmology.
Oh,
and I said,
good God. Hope he put it back together.
He did, actually. He did a pretty good deal. And Jared God bless him, as a gentleman and a scholar, he put out a nice forum thread where he said, hey, how I did this. In our forums, under the Avalon header, he went, hey, this is what I did. So you can go back and read that. And some of the things he talks about specifically was he used angels. He had more kind of outer beings and so forth. Anyway, so let me set the stage here. Avalon itself as a setting, the world of Avalon, the world where Avalon is the last place. This is in Brett's head. This is how I play it. That's it. Everything else outside, all other planes, all other places of existence are gone / devoured. If you think Dormammu from the Doctor Strange movie, think the Elder Ones, Urlig in this case, one of the elder horrible deities outside, have conquered and destroyed. The Lamplighters are in Avalon because it's the last place that they could go to. The Brain Gorgers are servants of Urlig. They're here trying to find ways and passages and cracks to get in here and take the last thing, right? There are no gods. This is all there is. Jared fucked with it, which is totally fine. And the reasons I like the fact that he fucked with it is that he liked the setting enough to put that much thought into it. And I think when you read through it, he's like, wow, he hit certain points like, I want to change this, we want to add this, and so on. He put thought into it and tried to make sure that he had an internal consistency to it. So what he did works and fits with that internal consistency. And that means that the players and he as game master can all interact with that new cosmology layout. And it makes sense, right? When you look at the X-Files universe or the Millennium TV show or Star Trek and whatever, the things people will complain about would be like, well, that's not really how transporters work, or, oh, they changed how transporters work now. There's an internal consistency that if you fuck with it in the wrong ways, it can be very jarring for a fan or somebody who really enjoys the thing. So I think Jared did a really good job cracking it. And he made the settings that for he and his players, right? It's stuff that he thought would be interesting, where places that they dug into and how they grabbed onto it. And one of the coolest things to me at the end of it is not only did he like my world, but this is Jared's Avalon. There is no other Avalon exactly like that one anywhere at all. And that's pretty fucking high praise, in my opinion, that somebody was able to do something and created it's a version of a thing, but it's really absolutely wholly Jared's. I never thought about some of the things he pulled in there. I'm like, cool. Wonder if I should steal some of that shit. So I brought that up because when we've talked about Ravenloft, Forgotten Realms is like this big example sometimes, Sean, where people are like, oh, it's so big, everything is so canon. Or even when we talk about Symbaroum, like, oh, this is canon, this is how it is, and Forbidden Lands, this is what the Blood Mist, and so on and so forth. And I think we've hinted at or talked about this before, but I wanted to bring it back up again because it's the gaming police argument in a way, right? But there is some serious power in taking the game world and making it exactly what you and your players want it to be. And I think the players can have a really solid hand in this because they can influence some of the things that you want to get into, right? So last time I ran an Avalon campaign for my home group, CB Alpha's character decided he wanted to be a bargeman. He's the first person that's ever played a bargeman in a campaign of mine. I've had one-shots where people have been a bargeman, but he really wanted to do it. He wanted to get into the bargeman as a people, as a culture, as a belief system, how they operated more. That's where I figured out the Penangalan vampires are like an old enemy of the bargeman that's somewhere within their mythology. So that was the place they went to get answers. And that didn't exist until that point when Alpha decided he really wanted to dig into it. And I think there's some serious power to that. And I think that even with something, my buddy Nick does this with his Star Wars games. He likes to pick, even if it's within the timeline of canon, he likes to pick some stuff off of it. Like you're far enough away from that piece. He's not going to let me go kill Luke Skywalker. Right. That's not what he wants to do. But he'll let us fuck around with the cosmology in other ways. So before we go too much further, Sean, you're nodding, so obviously it makes sense to you. But do you do this at all, or do you try to stick as close to canon, like the published? This is the world. I don't like to mess with it. Do you like doing that, or how do you like to roll? Or does it depend?
I usually go by what's kind of in the book and what's presented. I could always change it, and sometimes it.
But you tend because you're using published, or pre-published,
usually.
Adventures, you're leaning into that as the source material,
right?
And you're trying to keep it consistent within what's written.
Pretty much. Otherwise, unless it was maybe more of a homebrew. But, here's the thing with a lot of this stuff. And I admired what Jared did, and I think I grokked most of it from what he wrote in the forum post. And I think with his, it came into play somehow. But what I find is that one of the things, going off a kind of a side tangent, is when people are talking about making their own homebrew, they start out and whatever. The advice that people will give them is don't get too big. Like, don't start great, like huge. You don't have to go large and map out all the deities and the belief systems and 20 different organizations.
It's kind of wait until you need it. Once you need it, then you can get
start in a town and put what's relevant in front of the player characters, and then as things progress in the campaign, they can uncover the rest of that stuff, right? So that's kind of the thing that I would take into consideration when I run some of these games is, because some of these source books are pretty freaking daunting. It's like, I'm going to read 300 plus pages of this, and X amount of it is going to be stuff that, it's about the world. Great. And it's all great stuff. Fantastic. Do I need all of it? No. I mean, if I want to run something in Eberron, I'll make the group members of the, King's Dark Lanterns or something, right? Like a faction. Yeah. And so maybe you know a little bit about the faction. But I think that, another one, somebody was like, oh, Forbidden Lands, great. So much lore. What are you doing with the lore? Nothing. Like absolutely zero. Because it doesn't have to play a role until it does. Right? They come across something. It doesn't make sense. They ask some old wise person about something that happened hundreds of years ago, or this trinket has ties to something that happened 300 years ago. Great. Then it's maybe comes into play then. And even then, it doesn't even have to be the truth.
No, absolutely. I think there's a cool piece that if you're doing homebrew style, or even if you're doing it from a published IP setting, right, is that some of the shit literally doesn't matter if no one ever touches it. So if you never if the only time you've encountered a bargeman in the streets of Avalon is as an NPC, like, okay, neat.
Yeah, it's like
if the only two, okay,
it's like a keeper at a inn. Like, okay,
it's like, okay, cool. Yeah. You got a thing. I don't need to know all the different. If you don't run an adventure with ghouls, you don't necessarily have to come up with how the ghouls operate. You talk about like Delta Green, from a lore perspective. There's a huge thing on ghouls.
And they don't need to know any of it.
No, there's a big one. There's a bunch in Russia, Stalin's children, that like were big on because the pogroms over there.
Right.
There's ones in New Orleans, and they talk about how the hurricanes and different groups and blah, blah, blah. Nobody fucking needs to know any of that. It's cool shit.
Yes.
But your players may not get it.
It's actually better that they don't know all of that, because not only does it not matter, it just puts them in a space that they just don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, and what's kind of fun then is when they choose to do something. So you're running Forbidden Lands, they see this tower.
Yes.
If they would have said, fuck off with that tower, we're going to the hill.
They've done that already, by the way. But yes.
Yeah, I know they have.
Right,
You told me. But it's an opportunity, even with published stuff, where you throw the clue out there, you throw a thing, hey, it's a sandboxy thing, or however a linear adventure you're running, Like, hey, and they find the plastic dinosaur. They go, I don't like Stegosaurus. They put it down. I'm looking for the T-Rex. Maybe they tell you what they're looking for. Maybe they don't. And they wander off and go find something else. My vampire games would do this all the time, where there would be, in the original Chicago by Night, Lodin was the Prince of Chicago. There's a series of other, Khalid was a Nosferatu, all these different names, and they had charts for who hated whom and all this cool shit. And eventually, I'd have to do, or feel the need to do something drastic, like I just fucking kill an NPC. Because you want to send a vampiric city in turmoil, kill a primogen, high-ranking head of the clan, kill that person's lover, take away property, do something, right? I want to kick the hornet's nest, right? And when you do that, the PCs start caring about those different pieces and things that you're doing. Now, the original World of Darkness Chicago by Night book never said, if you kill Khalid, this is what will happen with the Nosferatu. I had to figure that out. That was also where I learned that if you accidentally gave the wrong name to one of the Bruja clan members, Crankshaft is no longer called Crankshaft. He's called Wrench because I called him Wrench. Like, okay, guess that's his name.
Right.
It just shit like that. And I'm making that up. I can't remember the actual Bruja's name, but whatever you're doing, you're changing names. If you're playing Forgotten Realms, Elminster is probably a very common name. People understand it. They're fine with it or whatever. But if you muck up or change a name of something, it doesn't matter. You might want to write that shit down, right? So you can remember it, type of thing. But you really don't have the boundaries imposed by an external force. I mean, Jared was cool where he's like, hey, I'm thinking of doing a thing. What do you think? Does this have an Avalon feel? I'm going to fuck with it a bit, but I want to have the same tone, man. What do you think? And he chatted me up, and I'm like, wow, this sounds really great. That definitely is a tone. Go. Not like you need my blessing, Jared, for Christ's sake. You're a big kid. Go do your own thing. But that's really cool. I like what you're doing. And I was as close a person as a gaming cop as I could have been, where I could have said, no, that's terrible.
Yeah, you can't do that.
I could have been
everything. What do you think? You could have just told me, and then I would have been, Rasher, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. I get Sean to jump on. God damn it, Jared. The fuck is wrong
Brett's
with you?
Brett's trying to be nice, but man, I don't know, Jesus. Dude. Messing up all kinds of crap over there.
God, what kind of a jerk would do that? He put his heart and soul in that book.
That's right.
Exactly. And I think when I watch other decent game designers on Twitter or any other sphere, they're like, oh, you're doing cool shit. Ed Greenwood always comes to mind for me because someone will say, oh, we killed Florin Falconhand. Hey, this person died. Hey, this happened with the gods. He's like, wow, that sounds like a really cool story. Sounds like you guys are having fun. Even if Ed probably thinks, the fuck did you do that for? Doesn't matter, right? He's just like, wow, you took a thing I made and you made it your own. That's really cool. But I think there's some serious power in there. And there's a point where we can feel hidebound, as Matt Colville would say. We can feel hidebound by this document, this book in front of us that says, this is the world of Symbaroum. Oh my God, I changed the queen's name on accident. I said Calanthe because I just got done watching The Witcher and I just said Calanthe. Oh my God, that's not her name. It doesn't matter.
Well,
unless you got Harrigan at the table,
right? That's
or somebody who calls it out and says, actually, which you would do very nicely. I'm game with Harrigan, nice guy. You'll say, oh, dude, wrong name. It's actually, oh, thank you. Whoo, feel like a moron. I honestly can't think of her name offhand. I should. But
it's Corinthia, isn't it, or something?
Corinthia, I think it's Corinthia, which is why Calanthe comes to mind. Or you'll come up with something and you make a mistake, and quite frankly, it doesn't matter, right? Unless. If you want to go back and correct yourself, that's fine. But in some of these adventures, I have seen ourselves as gamers in general. My son was doing this. He was agonizing over something because he gave Ilana and I an incorrect name. I said, AJ, this is your own home adventure, right? Yeah, but I used the wrong name. It doesn't matter. He said, well, I had to go into my Word document. I had to do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, Control F, find, change. It's okay. He's like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. I'm like, it doesn't matter, man.
Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody that.
That's the secret, man. DMs, don't tell anybody. They don't need to know. Players don't need to know. Shh.
Well, he's trying to run. I'm just doing a solid.
Yeah, but now you can get him young, right? So now he doesn't have to be a 20, 30-year-old doing it and telling, I meant to call him this, and I totally forgot.
Exactly.
Don't tell him.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I think is interesting when you fuck with the cosmology of an area, be it the Realms, Greyhawk, Star Wars, Star Trek, whatever you're doing, if somebody really decides that they're into X and your group, for whatever reason, is doing nothing but show that they really want to figure out why the Vulcans and this group aren't getting along right now. And that's like the focus of their thing. It's not Vulcans and Klingons, it's Vulcans and whomever's, whatever. They want to figure something out. And you're like, really? Okay. That's what they're interested in. And there's a piece here. If you're running a homebrew, it can be a little bit simpler, perhaps, because you have the ability to make things up a little bit more and change it, and you didn't wreck a $50 purchase of your, you don't feel like you blew $50 on this Rime of the Frostmaiden and no one gives two shits type of thing. But I could definitely see pulling out my Rime of the Frostmaiden game and having some players decide they want to spend more time figuring out how to get certain towns within the 10 towns to stop the human sacrifice thing more than they care about this other problem from the mountain. They may care more about that there's this everlasting winter and some towns are actually burning people at the fucking stake to try to appease the goddess of winter. That might be, depending what happens, I could see a party of like 2 paladins rolling in and a cleric could go, oh, hell no. They just, they spent all their time in this town fixing this problem. And then I'm like, what do I do with this? Does that change how that town reacts to every other town? Does that change what comes from the mountain? Do I just keep that clock rolling? What do I do here, right? They've basically gone off the rails and they're into something that's different and they're fucking with your cosmology on you because you're like, well, the adventure itself, as Alex Cameron pointed out to me, says, hey, it's a thing people do, but it doesn't really talk about how you stop them from burning people at the stake or killing them in any other way. I could totally see where somebody's going to go off and dive into that. And as the game master, I could say, no, that's not the plot. Get back over here. Or we could take this crazy ass detour and kind of either scrap an entire piece of the adventure or just let it cook in the background. You don't deal with it. The world comes and slaps you later. So, Sean, this reminds me a little bit of what you did with your, I think with Jeff's guy in the when he was dead but not.
Oh, Tomb of Annihilation.
The Tomb of Annihilation, yeah. Because that was not canon in the game.
No, he's supposed to die. He wasn't supposed to heal.
Yeah.
Come back. Yeah. So somebody did revivify. Yeah, sure, no problem. Whoops. That wasn't supposed to take place. So much for death curse killing people. What?
But you changed it.
Yeah.
You said, okay, here's the thing. And we talked about this, and if I remember correctly, it was like, okay, that worked once, and nobody will want to try that again.
Nobody. Yeah, no more of that's going to happen.
Yeah, so like, okay, wow, in this one case. And then what's interesting then is Jeff's character becomes the only one.
Right.
Unless somebody else happened to make the same quote-unquote mistake that you made, Jeff's paladin, who had a weird-ass effect from Revivify in a death curse area, is the only one of that kind who happened to be in that place and had the adventures that he had. That's incredibly unique. And you broke a key piece from what you described anyway. A key piece of that is like, look, you can't do this. You did it. Even if it's not supposed to happen, you allowed it.
Right. And
I think that type of stuff sometimes can be really, really cool. And you gave it a good explanation. Like, hey, it's because, it's just a weird curse-like thing. It's this weird necromantic energy, blah, 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 blah. And it freaked other people out. Would have freaked out my group anyway, I know. Like, okay, I'm not fucking doing that again. I took a page from that dude when I ran my Avalon game for my home crew last. Lenny's character had a weird magical incident occur with some ghouls and an explosion and magical powers, and he started to become a revenant. And he would find out, like, someone would shoot him. The crossbow would pass through his body. He would take no damage. He's like, what the fuck is this? And instead of like, oh my God, I'm way overpowered, he was terrified anyone would find out because he's like, I got 2 clerics in the party. They find out that I'm dead. This could go badly for me. Oh my God, the town, my parents, his character, and oh shit. That was, it fits the Avalon mode, but I don't have, kind of broke the fact that wasn't what the adventure was about, but it was kind of a cool thing to do. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you that, the little homage to your screwing of Jeff. I did the same thing to my buddies.
Yeah.
Good for him. I find that if I used to have when I was playing Vampire every week with my friends, it was every week, every Saturday, bam, 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 bam. If I fucked with a cosmology or I made a change or I killed a vampire or I killed an NPC, whatever, it was easy to remember, right? Because me and anywhere from 7 to 13 gamers, we all remembered something. It's all in there, easy to have. Now shit gets in the way. I got kids, I got stuff I do, so on and so forth. So I like to write shit down. So I take more notes now than I ever have before. And when I change something, I think that's one of the key pieces I learned from what Jared did was he made some big adjustments, at least from my perspective. And he had it. I don't know if he wrote it all down right away, but he had enough internal consistency that it played. And for me, the biggest piece when you break the cosmology, and when I say cosmology, I probably should define this up front. What I mean by that phrase is to say it's the way the world is supposed to work, or the official published setting material, or a rule, or names, whatever, anything within that official published world, that you're mucking with. If you don't keep track of it, you can have the issue of the perception of being capriciously just like changing your mind. Just a capricious whim of the game master, and Revivify works. It doesn't work. Oh yeah, that weapon does this damage. Oh, you just make a willpower save. Oh, give me a humanity check. And it just doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like house ruling, but this is about the way the world functions. And I think it's almost more important than if we house ruled a swim check one night because we couldn't find the fucking swim or drown rules. It's more important to say, hey, I accidentally misnamed the head vampire of the Bruja clan. His name is Wrench now. Write that shit down.
Yeah, Wrench. Yeah,
Wrench. If you're a heretic, you can write right in your book. I don't know what kind of beast would do that, but if you wish to be that kind of a monster, write in your book.
Harrigan writes in his books? Is that what it is?
Oh, Jesus. Good
he does?
God.
Does he?
I don't know. Yeah, Somebody probably
does.
Talk
to that guy then.
I know Chris Nizek does. He and I were talking this last Sunday. I'm like, oh,
that's right. I know.
Terrible.
I remember Chris does. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's just better break that habit. Holy cow.
Anyway, good gamers write on paper,
right?
With pencils, number 2 pencils, as God intended,
right?
But I do those. I write that stuff down, and I encourage my players to write this stuff down too. Hey, take notes, goddammit. But that way I can understand, like, hey, this is tied to this, to this, and so on. Just to, again, I want that internal consistency like Jared had so that it flows and that the world seems to function. And I think as players, the cool thing here is that you get to help drive the story. Whether the game has, you get a chip that says impact story, you have a fate point, you have a thing, I'm making up shit now, obviously, but where you can fix the story or you can make the story do. When you dive into stuff or head in a certain direction, then and it causes this type of thing to happen, where you're like, wow, I'm now changing it. Yeah, I'm creating my own inroad. That's pretty cool. And I think that's a piece then the game master can say, wow, no one cares about this piece of Rime of the Frostmaiden. This little side quest I thought they would all care about, this little weird connection with these animals or the frost giant thing and the furbolgs. I don't think they care. They care more about this human sacrifice thing. I'm going to scrap a piece of this published setup and focus on this instead, because that's where the action is. So, Sean, have you encountered that before where your players want to grab onto something that you didn't? I mean, that's not really important per se. Like sitting on a ship and shooting guns, like they want to get into ship combat. Sure.
Sometimes I let them.
Sometimes you let him just because I got to talk to that fucker every week.
Dumbest
it's just
shit.
easier to let him. It's easier to let him. But do you get that? Do you get that from players like at all? I don't know.
Maybe sometimes. I mean, there's always going to be, well, with published adventures, there's going to be times where they're going to go, like even outside of like Delta Green, because I think in Delta Green, it's pretty easy to funnel people in a particular direction. Not funnel, that's not even the right word, but giving them limited options. And they're tend to be very apparent. Like we can go and talk to this person. We can go to this resource. What do we want to do? And maybe there's 3 or 4.
Yeah, and you can come up with a combo option sometimes, or perhaps a wacky third, but you don't often get up 15, 16, 17 different options type of thing.
Right. But with a sandbox, it's a completely different ball game, right? So it's like a weird. Forbidden Lands is really kind of open. I don't know why it's opened my eyes, because there's nothing really. It's an interesting game, but it's not like comparing it to something like Fiasco, right? It's not like, oh my God, it's so completely different.
Well, let me throw the Mothership. Remember your Mothership game?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's
when you ran Mothership. It sounded like the way you're retelling it to me, like, oh my God, they got really wrapped up on this, or they were poking around, or you kind of had to change up things a little bit more.
So looking back, I don't think I ran it correctly.
Wait. So come back at me. What do you mean by that? What'd you do wrong?
There was something to take place that would render them helpless, like completely helpless. Like they don't have any option other than to hang on.
Yeah.
And I didn't take that away.
So instead of changing the Bruja's name to Wrench, you allowed them to have a spaceship that functions.
Yeah, a spaceship and it works fine. Which it shouldn't work fine, because if it works fine, then it allows them to get away,
escape,
and they did, kind of.
But you worked with it, though.
I did work with it. I have run published adventures where, I mean, Brett's a perfect example. He was in the Star Wars game. I just ran the same book for the Jeff crew that I ran for Brett and Kev Thulu and some other guys, and you guys didn't even, you went to here and you're like, screw it, we're out of here. And you went back to the ship and left.
Yeah, we did.
Right? I mean, and then there's then
we're going to go get the Julie Evan after that, because you're like, fuck, I got to figure out something.
This is like act 2 of like a 5-act play. And you're like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, we threw our tickets on the ground, left the theater.
Pretty much. And so then it was like, great, what am I going to do with these yahoos? And I got them. I don't even remember how I made the transition, but I'm just like, hey, there's a system there's a local planet in the system that you guys know of that you can.
You leaned on a lot of our dark side, our obligations, and we leaned into a lot of that stuff to kind of force. And I think what I recall, the reason I brought up the Mothership to you here is because I remember specifically saying, hey, I think I fucked up. And you and I talked about it.
Yes.
Off the mics a bunch. And we said, and you were very big on making sure from, like, to use my cosmology phrase, which is probably, again, the wrong damn term. But you were really big on making sure that it had a consistency regardless. Like, I fucked up, but I don't want to come and say, hey, guys, I fucked up. So a harpoon shoots your ship and drags you to the moon. Ha, ha, ha. Or you didn't want to ham fist it. You know what I'm saying? You didn't want to just GM fiat and destroy stuff. So we talked about, you were throwing ideas at me and I threw ideas at you of like, hey, what could you do to keep it within the consistency of the feel, so that everything had the same Mothership vibe, and allowed you to use some of the cool shit that the adventure had, even though you quote unquote fucked up and missed a piece.
Oh, it
still works.
I've had some bouts of some terrible moves, and I know my players probably don't know that. Again, shh, don't tell them anything. Don't tell them anything. But it is literally like, and I think sometimes the Forbidden Lands guys are like, now they'll be able to look back and go, oh, I think I know what he's talking about.
Oh, I know what that is.
Yeah, because there'll be stuff that. And this is how you can always tell. All right, I'm gonna give my tell away. So if you're in one of my game groups and don't want to know, tune out for like the next 15 seconds. The thing is when I explain something, right, then realize I didn't explain it correctly, or there's something more, or I have to bolt on something to it, right?
Yeah.
You know, so it's a. I'm not going to give specifics, but it'll be like, you know, hey, we're going to go in. Okay, great. You open the door, and then you're like reading it, and you're like, does it go up? Does it go down? I don't know. Where is this? How is this connected? And so then they'll go, and then they'll ask some of those questions, and you're like, that's a pretty damn good question. Shit. Yes, it does. It goes up. And then they're like, so how does it go up then? Like if we're here and then it goes up, where does it go? Very good question.
Very good question.
It just
again.
goes up. You know, it's like
strange. To you.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Now I can tell them like, so they'll be like, oh, so a lot of what you came up with isn't the way it was supposed to. And they can have those questions linger in the back of their head now, but right in the game, they're probably just kind of scratching their head going, at first it didn't make sense. Then after Sean explained things, okay, it makes better sense because I corrected some of their probably correct assumptions, honestly, right?
Yeah.
Like you get the player that's like, wait a minute, he just said that we're on the ground level and that there's stairs that go down. Okay, so we're going underground, right? And you're like, no, they're shit. I read that wrong. It's actually stairs going up. Yeah. No, not really. So the ground, it's like into a hill. It's in the side of a hill. So if you go down, you do go down underground, but since you're going up, you're still going up, but in part of land, right? Like you're part of a hill. So you're still under the ground of the hill. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Right?
I get you.
And they're like,
it still doesn't make a lot of sense. But like, I think I get it. You know what? Fucking let's move on.
Right. That's right. They'll be like, oh, okay, sounds good.
So I'll throw another one out here. Is that my buddy Lenny, when he runs Return to the Temple of Elemental Evil, the Monty Cook 3.0 adventure. You gave me your copy, Sean, which is very sweet of you.
I did.
There is a spoilers. There's a bad guy in there named Thrommel. He's a vampire.
Oh.
And the way Thrommel's set up is Thrommel is a monster in a room. Lenny's like, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
He's a monster in a room?
Yeah, he's basically just a monster in a room. He's a goddamn vampire, anti-paladin, blah, blah, blah. He's fucking tough as shit.
Right.
And Lenny's like, this makes no sense. And he looked on the boards. He checked around, talked to other DMs who were running it. He's like, okay, I got this. So he rewrote that chunk of the adventure. When he finally got up to it the first time, when his players were encountering him, like, this doesn't make any sense. And he started changing shit on the fly, went home, pulled the Jared Rasher, carved some stuff out, sat down, figured it out, and said, okay. And then when he ran it for me and the guys here, it was a pretty well, like, no, this is how Thrommel operates. Right? He was a badass motherfucker, and it took us a long time to deal with him. Although we did figure out how to deal with them with Wall of Mud, Wall of Stone, and Sunlight spells.
All those good, cool, interesting combos that they nuked with concentration.
Which was super interesting too, because
for a reason.
This was Lenny's kids were much younger. My favorite piece was she's like, okay, I gotta go upstairs, put the kids in bed. You guys think how you want to have this fight? Okay. We're like, it's gonna take him 45 minutes to put the kids down. We cracked the books, looked at every spell we had. We go, we got this. He came back in 10 minutes. We had him dead. It was great. But it was like a month's worth of gaming to get to the point where we could have the fight because he harried us and so on. Anyway, point is Lenny broke the cosmology. He broke the consistency of that setting. And he figured out, and he said, okay, I did this thing. What are all the knock-on effects of this happening? So, for example, again, in my Avalon world, if you say, you pick one of the magistrate families, one of the 13 ruling families that control the city, make the laws, they're the magistrates, and so on. If you pick a ruling family, you introduce a member of that house, a potential high-ranking member of the house, perhaps the patriarch or matriarch of that house, the one who's in charge, and the PC somehow managed to kill her. Fuck. You just put a vacancy. What does that do? Oh my God. Right? The PCs did a thing. And you could be like, wow, it was really fun. It was super cool. I didn't think about what the effects would be. I didn't want to just GM fiat say, oh no, she has a secret trap door made of poison that you can't. She's gone. She turned into a ghost and left. Instead of doing that, something happens, right? And you screwed with it. Or you say the Bromwell family. It's not the Bromwells. It's somebody else. You've renamed them. And somebody else happens to be a scholar of the setting and says, the Bromwells. Third house? I thought that was a Cromwell's. Did you say Cromwell or Bromwell? And you could be like, oh, no, I meant, sorry, my mistake, which is legit. Or you could be like, no, it's Bromwell. It's totally fine. Okay. And somewhere in the back of your head is like nagging, like, did I fuck that up? Does that happen? And you're like, it doesn't matter for right now. Let's keep moving. Or everyone keeps saying Bromwell and it just sticks with you. And pretty soon that's the family name. Well, what happened? And maybe a player asked you. It's silly things like this that I have talked to game masters and players like my son AJ and even grown ass adults where we go, oh my God, I fucked up. I changed the name. Oh, I did the spell wrong. I changed where the dungeon was. You mucked something up.
Penance.
Yes.
Must serve penance.
Yes, you must go to your local gaming store and buy 5 modules out of penance. That's what you have to do.
Yes, and burn one of them. Inside a pentagram.
Thaumaturgic circle.
Yes.
We could go to your first edition AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. You can find a thaumaturgic circle.
That's right.
Do it.
There you go.
Anyway, I think the key here is that when things change or you break it, sometimes game master and player advice is permission giving, as corny as that sounds. Sean and I are here to say, look, you can do that. You could go through and say, you know what? I don't like Elminster. I don't like anything in Cormyr. I want to rebuild Cormyr in the Forgotten Realms. And I don't want to have to deal with anything in the Dale Lands either. So, okay, we're going to take care of Elminster. He's out. This is gone here. I'm going to say this war happened in Elminster and the Magister and the Symbol, they're gone. Because I don't know if I can deal with it. Why? Because I just don't want to. And everyone goes, ooh, it sounds interesting. Or maybe that's whatever. You are seriously changing the landscape of NPCs and events, right? And when you do that type of thing, it can be a lot of fun. But all I would suggest and recommend strongly is make notes of what you're changing and why, so that things work appropriately. And have that internal consistency that you and your players crave. The verisimilitude is important, and to keep that where it belongs, you need to be able to reference these things when you make big changes or adjustments to a setting. And sometimes, like I said, we'll do that stuff, and some jagoff online will tell you, oh, you can't do that. That's not what you should do. How dare you? Someone may or may not do that to you. If you're lucky, you'll never encounter such a jagoff, but they exist. They exist.
No way.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. People online, some people online exist solely to tell you how wrong you are and how bad you are. Having fun. Yes.
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It is crazy.
We're telling them they're wrong.
That's what I'm trying to do.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go. Back at you.
It's a circle of life.
The circle of life. The circle of fuck you, dude. Anyway, point is like I think we had a little bit of that even with the with the Blades in the Dark game. Frank House had a ghost key, and he was like, hey, are you going to stick it in this guy's eye socket and turn it? How does that function? He was using something in an interesting way. If we were to continue to play that campaign, right, as our 3 characters, the way that key functioned at that moment, and how Eric and I, after the rest of you guys dropped off, we were talking about, what we think that did was we actually opened a portal to the last place this guy saw. Like something that he witnessed, that he murdered somebody or something kind of cool in that space. So we potentially put a box or a boundary or a function about how those keys worked that may or may not. I do not know the rule system enough to say whether this is we quote unquote broke or changed anything. But I could definitely see that. The first time your players use a magic item in an interesting way. Matt Colville talks about this, where people had a portable hole and they kept jumping into the portable hole, and then the rogue would use his plus gajillion sneak to bypass a whole bunch of the dungeon, and then ta-da! Everyone pops out of the back, portable hole.
Fantastic.
So finally, he's like, "Okay, the air's used up. There, something had to, we gotta figure this out because this is getting silly."
Players, man. If not anything, creative.
Yes. Which is a staple in the old days, and it's not that it's not now, but when something would say it contains this much air, enough air for 5 people for 10 rounds. Huh. So 1 person for 50 rounds? Oh, sure. That makes sense. Cool. Okay. My wizard hops in a bag and it's supposed to lie. But because the rule was a little wonky, a little room for gap, we leverage and weasel. And then that's how that thing functions. Right. And then now your game has a bag of holding that works as the wizard's private oxygen, never ending or 50 rounds of wizard oxygen. That's just what the bag is now.
Oh, so if I do that and I carry you guys around everywhere, as long as I'm the only one that gets sleep, you guys could sleep inside the hole.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
A buddy of mine used a bag of devouring to sneak up and backstab a demi-lich. Basically, what he did was he put the bag of devouring over the demi-lich's skull, and you read the instructions in the first edition. It says, destroys, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, kaboom! So this is what happened.
Right.
Now, in my first edition game with my home group, everybody knows if you want to kill a demi-lich, you probably should get yourself in Avalon. When my characters went out into the wilds of Avalon, I had, on a whim, the guys had donkeys because they couldn't afford horses. They get donkeys, and they ran into some displacer beasts. And displacer beasts, they're getting their asses handed to them by these displacer beasts. And they come out, or I can't remember what happened, but at some point, like, the donkeys are alive. And somebody goes, "Yeah, would it be funny if there's like a dead displacer beast, the donkey stomped it to death?" And I said, "That's exactly what happened." And they're like, "Are you kidding me?" So in Avalon, in the Outlands, a displacer beast, donkeys can see them and they hate them. They just fucking hate them. And they're like, "Really? Yeah. Okay. Crazy." Because the donkey's braying and their noise and their anger and and there's just stubbornness there. They can see displacer beast dead on. And displacer beasts freak out, and they just stomp the living shit out of them. They're like, "Oh my god!" So they did not, for every time we went out in the wild, like, get a donkey. We gotta have a donkey. I'm not gonna throw displacer beasts at you. I don't care. I don't fucking believe you, Brett. Donkey, give me a donkey. Give me a jackass right now. It's a silly thing, but that's well documented in my home game. Yeah, I have it written down. How it works and everything, because it was needed. It was absolutely a necessity. But it was just a silly thing that the players dove into, and it kind of fucked up how displacer beasts function and what other things could happen, and that with the knock-on effect of that, what else in nature could do such a thing? What other seemingly mundane barnyard animal? Can I use a chicken against the owl bear? Is that possible? It cracked open this thing, and it doesn't. Nowhere in the displacer beast rules does it say and donkeys can kick the ever living shit out of them.
No.
Nowhere in the donkey rules does it say and they are the displacer beast natural born enemy.
Right.
It says that nowhere. I fucked with it with my players, and that's what we got. So anyway, enough examples and ideas. If you've done this type of thing to effect, I actually do encourage people to check out Jared Rasher's forum post. I thought it was pretty cool. Very simple. It's a very fast read. Just what he did, how, and the consistency that I think it helped create. I thought it was really well done. If you've done this type of thing, let us know and kind of how you've done it. And if you have done it, you're like, "Wow, that didn't work." That'd be good to know too. We learn really well from our mistakes. And if you've done it to great effect, let us know. It'd be cool.
Yeah, let us know. Let's get into die roll.
Off we go.
24 miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery I want to bring to you. All right, first one. Link to Craig's recordings of us playing Blades in the Dark. See, Brett, win an Emmy, an internet Emmy for his performance.
Wasn't nearly as good as your Slink. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was as good as mistake, man. Yeah, not as good as him. Stop repeating everything. Yeah, I gotta stop repeating everything. Stop that. Yeah, I'll stop that.
I don't know what Brett's talking about. Next one, Discord community member Drake and Dice has a Kickstarter. Court of Blades ends May 21st, 2021. It's a tabletop RPG of power politics, gunpowder diplomacy, Renaissance magic, and romantic skullduggery, powered by what is it? Blades in the Dark, powered by.
Oh yeah, that's a
Powered by the dark, powered by the blades of the dark. I can't. Dark of the
Something
blades.
like that. Dark of the blades.
Forged in the dark. Forged in the dark. Winner, Blake Ryan. Give that guy.
Thank you, Blake.
Give that guy coffee. Yeah. Forged in the dark. But he's like, what is that? Like a $7,000 minimum, and they're at like $50,000 or something crazy.
Yeah, he wanted
I think
$7,500. He's got $49,133.
Yeah, I think it might be his wife and he that's doing it. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, check it out.
Good stuff, man.
Is
awesome.
Really looking sharp. Yeah. Next one, check out BSer's Ghost GM on Table Talk RPG on Twitch. Ghost does show up in the chat every once in a while, but he's got a Twitch channel, and they host.
Cool.
Roll for Gaming, where they discuss different topics and issues regarding world of tabletop RPGs. They do, I think, some actual play too. Like I think they did Tales from Loop.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, good stuff. Next one, I was looking at his Twitter feed, and then in this, I stumbled across this, which was interesting, and I'm not quite sure exactly how it works. It's the RPG Kitchen, which is our mission to help tabletop RPG creators earn a living from their craft. All our profits goes towards ending world hunger. Great novel cause.
The world's first tabletop RPG rental store.
Yes. So you as a creator somehow put your stuff up there, and then I think people rent it. That's how you as the creator, and they take like 10% or something like that. Or
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Right.
I don't know what to say about this. I gotta read up a little bit more. What the hell? Ha, ha, ha. Interesting.
Yep. And then last but not least, Wired. Get it? Wired Science.
WY.
Weird Science. It's a new quarterly magazine celebrating role-playing games, war games, and board games. It sets out to give space wizards, gelatinous cubes, and tentacled gods the respect they deserve. So Phil put that in our Discord, and so thanks Phil for checking that out. But go grab it; it's free. You can check it out and see.
Very cool.
What it's all about. Yeah.
There's so much kick-ass stuff being made for games, man.
Kick-ass.
It's
stuff.
just over the top. We are an embarrassment of riches.
Right.
Very cool.
It is very cool. So check all that stuff out. What are we talking about next week, Brad?
We're going to talk about balancing expectations. I got this one from Ray Otis, who spit some diamonds over in our forums, and I said, hey, we're going to throw that one out there. So that's next week. Balancing expectations. Yes, it's like Great Expectations, only I will not give you a quiz or need you to write a theme based on it. Great Expectations. It's a Kiss song. You know that song, Brett? I do, unfortunately. What? Don't like Kiss. We've talked about this. You just want me to say. You just want me to say the things that'll get people to hate me. That's what your goal is. No. Don't like Star Wars. He doesn't like Kiss. What the fuck's wrong with that guy? Wow, I can understand why people don't like Kiss for a number of reasons. All right, that's cool. We'll get off of this. Everybody, thanks for showing up and during our live recording. You can find us here at Monday nights, 8 p.m. Central Time here on Twitch. If you see this on YouTube, give us a like or a subscribe as it comes up. But otherwise, you can find the audio, which is the flagship of the show, at any podcatcher of choice. Just search for Gaming and BS and hit subscribe. Otherwise,
This has been Sean for Gaming and BS.
And I'm Brett for Gaming and BS. Good night and good game, all.
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.